All right, welcome back to the Crabby. Today we're going to do a full rules breakdown for Navegador, which is a Matt Gertz game, and he's the king of the rondel. And guess what? This is a rondel game. So at its core, we're going to be using this rondel, which is just a fancy way of action selection. You're going to be only picking actions that are in front of your current token, but we're going to get to that later. And as you can see, the theme to this one is probably Portuguese shipping here, where we're going to be moving our ships along, making trades, making money, either selling goods or processing goods, visiting the colonies here along the way, picking them up, and so on and so on. All right, so this is going to be the full rules breakdown. Click the link below if you want to see the full playthrough. And 3 things before we start. Please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That'll be fantastic. Let's go. All right, so first thing, like usual, let's do the setup. All right, so this one's fairly easy. Put out your massive game board here, which shows the map of the world, or the middle of it anyway. Let's start from the left here. Up here, you're gonna have the 3 cubes for the prices of goods. Align them properly with the color and put them all on the shaded area. That's going to be the starting prices. For each of the colony spaces on the board, they each have a type and a number. You're going to shuffle them all face down and put the amount shown on the spot there. So here it says 4, so you're going to take 4 randomly face down. You'll put them there. You'll do the same thing for all the spots. For each of these exploration areas, you're going to put out one of these exploration discs. All right, up here you're going to have your privileges. The start of the game is going to be 1 on each of the spots. These are little tiles. They're all the same. Doesn't matter. Just put 1 on each. Out here on the right, you are going to put out all your factories. You're going to fill up all 6 spots for all 3 different types. You're going to have your shipyard and your churches. Now for these ones, depending on your player count, you are going to have some empty spaces on the right. All right, so don't worry about that. You always start from the left and just fill it up as many as you have. All right, and finally on the map here, there are a couple of these 2x exploration discs. This is a player count thing. If you're playing 2 or 3 players, you're going to put one of these on Macau and Nagasaki. If not, if you're playing 4 or 5, you're not going to play with this one and you're just going to have one on Nagasaki. All right, that's going to be it for the main game board components. For the players, all right, for the game board, first of all, play their action pawn, which is the action selection you're going to be doing on the middle to start the game. You're going to put 2 ships out here in Portugal, a worker on the 3 space. In your own personal area, you're going to have your little player board. You're going to start with 1 wild factory, it's the orange one. 1 church, 1 shipyard, 5 ships in your personal supply, $200, and finally a purple privilege tile. This is going to be used at the end of the game, so don't worry about it right now. All right, you just put it on the side and you'll deal with it later. The absolute last thing you need to do is just figure out who the first player is going to be. In my case here, I'm going to say red's going to be the first player because the last player is going to get the Navegador token. And we'll talk about this during the rules. It's going to let them do an extra sail action and give them also the orange ship as well. That's pretty much it for the setup. Oh yeah, put your coins out on the side of the board. There's no goods to take care of at all. And there you go. So let's go to the rules. All right, quick rules breakdown. So like I mentioned in the intro, this is a rondel game, which is just a fancy way of saying action selection, but the only potential actions you can do are the 3 spaces in front of where your action marker is. All right, by the way, first turn of the game, because you're not actually on the rondel yet, you can take any action you want. So let's say red did a sailing action, green did a ship's action, and let's say yellow did a market action. All right, for whatever reason. After that, how the rondel works, again, the 3 in front of your marker, always going clockwise, are free actions. All right, so you can either do a worker action, a market action, or a colony action. So take the action that you want. All right, if you want to go past those 3, you have to give up a ship that you have out on the board. All right, not in your personal supply, but on the board. You're going to return that ship into your personal supply. All right, and that allows you to move an extra 1, so you can go 4 spaces. All right, if you really want to go all back around to do the same action again, you'd have to give up 5 ships. So free, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ships. You'll take them off the board. All right, really expensive. You're probably never going to see that. All right, so that's how the rondel is going to work. You're just going to go around the table, each person doing actions based on where they're moving their action marker. So let's say red's next turn would be getting workers, then green would go get buildings, and then yellow would say get privileges. And then it'll go back to red. Let's say red now wants to go get privilege, and then green says sailing, and then yellow goes buildings. All right, you're always going to go in round robin in clockwise order around the table. All right, you're always going to be moving your action markers out on the board. And you're just going to keep going. There's nothing in this game that happens in between players' turns. And you're just going to keep going till the end game is triggered. Now, how does that happen? It happens in one of two ways. The first and most common is a ship reaches Nagasaki. All right, that's going to trigger the end of the game. The second way is if all the buildings have been built. All right. But when the end gets triggered, each player is going to have one more turn to do an action. And then it's going to end the game. You're going to go straight to end game scoring. See the link below if you just want to see how that works. All right, so now you sort of know how the gist of the game mechanism flows. All right, let's talk about all these 6 different actions and how they work. All right, so let's start with some of the easier actions and we'll work our way to the more complex ones. And we'll start with, let's say, building ships. So the ships action, which means getting ships from your personal supply out onto the game board. All right, first of all, whenever you build ships, they always go directly to Portugal. So if you build 3 ships, you take 3 ships, you put them into Portugal. All right, what are the cost of these ships? Now, you're going to pay 50 per shipyard that you have, which are the brown buildings. And any others is going to be the price according to what phase you're in. So at the start of the game, you're in phase 1. I'll talk about these phases later on in the video, but here you're going to be looking at phase 1. In phase 2, you'll look at this table, and in phase 3, you'll look at that one. All right, so this one says 100. So at the start of the game, if I want to build 3 ships, it's going to cost me 50 for my shipyard and an extra 200 because I'm going to be looking at the table over there, 250. All right, let's say as a random example, I would have had 2 shipyards and I want to build 3 ships. Well, it's going to cost me 100 for the first 2 and an extra 100 for that one. So it's going to cost me 200 for 3 ships. All right, and again, whenever you build ships, directly into Portugal. All right, if you understood ships, workers action works the exact same way, except for workers, and you're going to be looking at the churches. All right, so there's a worker track over here. You don't actually have physical workers in your play area. It's just tracked virtually on this track over here. So at the start of the game, you're going to start with 3. And every worker you want to get, it's 1 per church you have. And again, the same exact chart. It's going to be the same price as the ships. You're going to spend an extra 100 per extra worker you want to buy. All right, so let's say at the start of the game, I did a worker action. I want to get 2 workers. It's going to cost me 50 for my first one and 100 for my second one. I'm going to gain 2 workers, which means just moving my marker twice on this track. So I'm going to have 5 workers. All right, you just track your workers up here. All right, next, let's take care of buildings, all right, which is all the buildings down here on the bottom right. So the cost of the building you want to buy is actually indicated out on the board. Sorry if it's a little far for you, but the first column here is $50 for this one, 70, so on and so on. But there is one minor requirement to buy a building. You need to have the amount of workers available indicated on the left. Right, so if you want to buy a factory, you need at least 3 workers. You start the game with 3, so that's fine. All right, so you'll be able to buy, let's say, the sugar factory. It'll cost you $50. All right, when you buy a factory, they'll go out on your board. Factories go in this red area over here. Just keep them all together. Churches and shipyards go out on the right-hand side here. If you want to buy a church or a shipyard, that's going to require either 4 workers or 5 workers. And then the prices are indicated above over here. It's 100, 150, 200, and they get much higher as you go down the track. All right, but anyway, you're going to go buy a building, buy whatever you like, and put it on your player board. And yes, you can buy as many buildings in one action as you have money and workers available. So because I have only 3 workers, I can only buy 1 factory. But let's say I was at 7. Well, then I can buy either 2 factories, or I can buy a factory and a shipyard, or any combination of the 2. All right, next let's talk about the sailing action, which is moving your ships out onto the game board. All right, so this is how your ships move around. Now, the amount of distance they can go is depending on what phase we're in. So in phase 1, again, look at the legend. You're going to see a little 1 arrow. So each of your ships can move 1 space. In phase 2, they can move 2. And in phase 3, they can move 3. And this is all your ships individually. So if you have 5 ships out there, they can all move 1 or 2 or 3 depending on the phase. All right, and you can split up their movement however you like between ships, except for one exception. Okay, when moving into an unexplored area, you can always tell that because A, there's a disk, and B, the colonies there are unexplored. You need to send an extra ship because you're going to lose a ship in that region. All right, you're exploring it, it's dangerous, lose a ship, pretty thematic. So let's say at the start of the game, I want to do a sailing action. I'm going to move both my ships down, which means, again, I'm going to lose a ship. I'm going to gain this exploration marker as a little token that's going to be used for endgame scoring. And then I'm going to explore that region, which means flip over all of the tiles that are there. The last benefit you're going to get is you're going to look at the lowest value colony and you're going to gain that much from the bank. So that's 90. So you're going to grab 90 from the bank and put it into your personal supply. All right, we'll talk about gaining these in a little bit. All right, that's what you're going to do. So let's say we're later on in the game. A random example here. And let's say green did a sailing action. We're in phase 2. So each of his ships can move 2 spaces. All right, so for example, this one can move 1, 2, this one can move 1, and these ones can move individually, let's say 1, 2, and then 1, 2 for whatever reason. All right, you can split it off however you like. And then when they're here, they're going to again do the explore, flip it over, get money according to the spot, and lose a ship. The only extra thing is, better not forget this, but there's the 2x danger tile here. This is an extra ship. So you actually need 3 ships to go into this region, and you're going to lose 2 when you're there. And that's also on Nagasaki and Macau, according to the player account. All right, the next action related to sailing is colony action, and that's gaining the colony tiles from the game board. All right, so you're going to see a little reminder out here in the middle of the board. It says 2 workers and 1 ship to gain a colony. All right, so at the start of the game, you only have 3 workers, which means at most you can gain 1 colony because 2 out of those 3 plus a ship will get you a colony. And even if you had more ships out there, you don't have enough workers to gain more colonies. But let's just say I had 6 workers and 3 ships out there, then I'm good. All right, I have 6 workers divided by 3. That's enough. With 3 of my ships, I'll be able to gain 3 colonies that turn. And now colonies are not free. You still have to pay. So if you don't have the money, well, you won't be able to gain those colonies. But you're going to pay the price indicated on the tile itself to gain that colony. So in this example here, let's say I had a lot of money. I would be able to gain a colony here. So I'll pay $50 to the bank. From here, I would pay 80, pay to the bank. And over here, I would pay 50, pay to the bank. And then I would put all these tiles in front of me. These are the colonies that I just gained. All right, next up is the market action, which, as you can see, is the only one that appears on the rondel 2 times. So whether you take it here or here, it's going to be the same action. All right, and this is selling or processing the 3 different goods in the game. All right, so sugar, gold, and spices. All right, what you can do with that action is either sell or process each of the goods individually. All right, so you can do 2 sells and 1 process, or all 3 processes. You can split out however you like, whichever benefits you the most, because you are trying to make the most money with this action, but you can split it up. I'm just going to show you with a random example with my current tableau, let's just say. So what I might do is I might sell sugar and gold because I have those colonies. All right, so you need colonies to sell the goods, which is the first 3 columns. And then I'm going to use my factory, remember this is wild, to process the spices, all right, which is going to be the 4th column over here. Look at the color. These are factories. This is factories. These 3 are colonies. All right, it's all color coded, so it's pretty good. All right, so the way this works is all the goods have a current cost. All right, at the start of the game, it is 50, 60, 70 on the tracks. All right, so in this example, I sell 2 gold, which means I gain 2 times 60. I'm going to take 120 from the bank, put in my supply. And then because I'm doing it twice, it's going to go down twice. Right? The price of the good goes down for each good that I sell. All right, let's say I do it for sugar once. I would gain 50, and then it would drop down 1 time. All right, if I was doing that for spices, I'd do the exact same thing. I would gain 70, and it would go down. Processing is the opposite. It makes it go up. All right, so let's just say with my wild factory, I'm going to process spices. So I'm going to gain 30. It's the column on the right. Take it from the general supply. And then it's going to go up according to how many factories I'm using. Right now it's only one, but let's say I had multiple spices factory. It can go up multiple times. All right, if the track ever hits the top or the bottom, well, they don't move. All right, so if it reaches the absolute top, it's not going to go any further up, and if it reaches the bottom, it's not going to go further down. All right, so you're going to do that. You're going to process or sell each of the goods and reset the market, and then it'll go on to the next player. So this market is going to keep fluctuating every single turn while people are taking that action as you play. All right, so the last action is privileges. All right, so this action is gaining these privilege tiles in the windows up here, as you can see. And this deals mostly with endgame scoring. But I'm going to show you what happens when you do this action, then I'll come back to it at the end when talking about scoring with your personal tableau. All right, so when you do this action, the first thing you need to do is give up a worker. All right, so if I was at 6, for example, I would go down to 5. After that, I can take any of the current displayed tiles. It is first come, first served. They don't get replenished. They only get replenished at the beginning of phases. So let's say right now I would take, because I have 3 colonies, maybe I'll take this one. All right, when you take one of these, you're going to slot it into your board, all right, on the same column that it belongs to, obviously. And you're going to gain the multiplier in coins from the general supply. So here it says times 30. This is a colony tile, so I'm going to gain 30 times as many colonies I have in my personal supply. So I will gain $90 from the general supply and put in my personal supply. All right, it works the exact same way for every single column. Here, for example, churches is times 50. So if I had 2 churches and I would take that tile, then I would gain $100, 50 times 2. Right now I only have 1, so I'll gain only $50. All right, so that's the immediate benefit, but this is more beneficial for endgame scoring, like I mentioned before. All right, let's quickly just talk about phases, which I mentioned multiple times in this video. Remember phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And this is just a sort of replenishing of the privileges and making things cost more during the game. But it's fairly simple. You're going to see these 2 red lines on the board. Whenever the first person to cross this is going to trigger the end of phase 1 and the start of phase 2. He's going to finish his sailing action, but essentially what we're going to do is we're going to refill the privilege market according to the table up there. So you're going to look how many players there are. So let's say in a 5-player game, at the start of phase 2, there should be 2 tiles in every single privilege slot. So you're just going to refill the market. All right, in phase 3 in a 5-player game, there should be 3 in every privilege spot. All right, but if you're only playing a 3-player game, it should be 1 and then 2. All right, so you'll just grab the tiles and you refill it. All right, and for that next player, you're also going to see again, the boats are going to move more, like I mentioned many times, and everything is going to cost more, the workers and the ships, if you don't have shipyards and churches. I do have to really stress though, is that this only happens at the end of his sailing action, so he doesn't gain the extra boost by crossing the red line. It's only for the next guy's sailing action that he gains the boost of 2 spaces. All right, and you're going to do the exact same thing for phase 3 when somebody crosses the red line over here. Again, for the following turn, everything's going to cost more. You're going to refill the market and so on. All right, let's quickly talk about end game scoring. All right, the game ends. I mentioned it before, just as a reminder, when one ship hits Nagasaki, everyone's going to have one final turn. Or when all the buildings are built, everyone's still going to have one final turn. And then you're going to go to end game scoring. All right, so most of your end game scoring is going to come from your personal board with these privileges. All right, but before you do that, there's actually 3 things you're going to score. Each ship that you have out there is going to score a point. Each worker is going to score you a point. And each $200 in your personal supply is going to score you a point. You're going to score those 3 things. And then you're going to score your privilege board in front of you. All right, before you do though, you do have this purple tile that you can use anywhere you like. All right, so you decide at the end of the game, let's say I want to slot it over here for whatever reason. All right, now there's a 2-1. It's just because if you slot it into 1, 2, or 3, it's times 1. All right, it's the same number as what's up here. All right, and if you slot it into the last 2, then it's actually a 2. All right, because you're going to see these tiles, for example, this is a 1, this is a 2. All right, those are always 1s, those are always 1s, those are always 1s, those are always 2s, and those are always 2s. All right, that's why it's 2-1. All right, but for whatever reason, let's say I want to do this. All right, so go to endgame scoring. So how do you score this? All right, you're going to go down the line. So colonies, you're going to score 1, 2, 3 points per colony. So it's 3 times 3, 9. Here is going to be 2 points per factory. Right now I just have 2. Here's going to be 5 points per exploration disc. That's 5 points. Here's going to be 5 points per shipyard. That's going to be 5 points. And it's 3 points per church. That is 3 points. You add up all that together, and that's your final score. Whoever has the most is going to win the game. All right, and the absolute last thing to talk about, you already know how to play, is the Navegador tile. And this is sort of not really the catch-up mechanism, but the benefit of being last in turn order compared to being first, because there's a benefit of being first, you get to things first. So what's the benefit of going last? Well, this is going to allow you to have a free sailing action if you have this tile. All right, and the action is done before your current action. So let's say the green player over here was starting here. So they would say, okay, I'm using this, so I'm going to do my free sailing action. He would do it on the board. He does not have to move his token out on the rondel. All right, he just does the sailing action. All right, and then after the sailing action, he would do his regular action. So let's say he moves this to building and does the building action. All right, after performing the free sailing action, this actually gets passed to the player to his right. All right, so it's constantly being chucked around the table. All right, so this is going to go to player 2. All right, so let's say you're playing a 5-player game. We'll go to player 4. All right. And he's going to be able to do that ability on his next turn. Now, the reason we have this orange ship is because when you receive this tile, you're going to put the ship at that location. So let's say yellow was here. He's going to put the ship at yellow. He has exactly 1 full rotation of the rondel to use this ability, or he's going to lose it. All right, so let's say he's taking actions, taking actions, taking actions, taking actions, and he still hasn't done the free actions. Let's say he takes another action. All right, this is going to rotate again. Boom. We go to the next player. All right, let's say red was here. Well, then now we're going to put this on red. So now red has 1 full rotation to use that ability. And if you do use the ability, so let's say red was here, they use the ability, this is going to go to green, and now this ship's going to go reset back to green, because now green has gotten the navigator tile. All right, so it's sort of like a way to move ships faster and get a benefit for the players in last in turn order. All right, so those are pretty much all the rules to Navegador. Click on the rules, click on the links below for the full playthrough. I'll play a full playthrough of this for 3 players, and we'll see you in the next one. Later.